Newsline with Faraz Shaukat Ali on TV1.
A very good evening to you and a warm welcome to Newsline Zoom. Our guest this evening is Mr. Nizam Kariapper, who is the President's Counsel and also Secretary of the Sri Lanka Muslim Congress, SLMC. A very good evening to you, Mr. Kariapper, and welcome to the program.
Good evening. Sure, it's a pleasure to be with you.
Thank you. Now then, much of Sri Lanka and much of civil society and so on are rather concerned for events in Sri Lanka. Not only are we having the most awful economic conditions and challenges, but also it appears that this government, in their wit and in their wisdom, have now proposed some form of broadcasting regulatory mechanism, and which is hopefully the topic of our discussion today. Tell me, Mr. Kariapper, when you look at these proposals to regulate the media, what worries you most?
Okay. Firstly and fundamentally, two things strikes in this act. First, the objective of this regulatory commission or the broadcasting regulatory commission is they talk about the very first objective, the truth and the correct facts. And then it goes with the power, which goes to the extent of even cancelling the license. Those are the two things that worries me. And number of times that I read, the more I read, more I get the feeling this is not a regulatory commission, but a controlling commission.
So there's a distinct difference between regulating and controlling. Are we talking about, what do you mean by controlling? Are you talking about the controlling of the editorial content or what?
No, it's basically once you say there is an authority which is entitled to go into the contents and see the accuracy, the facts and the truth. And then if that is violated, or if that authority feels is not factually not correct, it's not truth, then it follows is that they can recommend whatever the authority is to cancel the license. So what I'm saying is generally a regulatory, now we have the Telecommunication Regulatory Commission, which goes into the technicality and it goes into the need of the consumers who uses the various service providers. But when it comes to the broadcasting or the mass media, giving a blanket cover or giving a license, a blank check to any authority for that matter, which can go into the contents, is going to be a bit of a problem. And that's what had happened all over the world.
Let's ask the question. In your opinion, should there be regulation?
Of course, that's one thing I have been telling. The need for regulation is always there. So the mass media has to accept a need for regulation. Then the question is, what do you want to regulate? How do you want to regulate? And where do you draw the line between right to provide information and at the same time, how do you control disinformation or purposeful malice misinformation? So this is a bit of a conversation or a debate that's going all over the world. And we may have to pick on many examples and we have to look at our own experience in our own country. And then we may have to bring out a formula because especially there's a lot of talk about the volunteer regulation by all the mass media institutions. So we may have to come up with some alternative because otherwise the government can always say that there can be an absolute freedom where the mass media go and abuse their right to broadcast and do whatever they want. So there have to be a regulation, and where do you draw the line is the biggest question.
I put it to you, Mr. Kariapper, that our normal, let's say our penal code and the laws in place right now are sufficient to control people who are making vexatious statements, people who are making malicious statements, people who are trying to promote racial disharmony, for example, and that there are plenty of laws available right now. For example, if I was to make a malicious and vexatious statement about Mr. X, Mr. X has plenty of opportunity to go to the courts and to sue me, to shut me down, whatever, as long as there is judicial oversight in these matters. Yeah. Would you agree that there are enough rules?
There are rules, but the question is whether it's enough, because the president the other day made a remark about the fact that disinformation is no more a criminal offense, because that is one of the international standard that you report without fear being being prosecuted. But on the other hand, do Sri Lanka have sufficient judicial redress to anybody who have actually been persecuted and victimized by the mass media? I would like to take an example, being a member of a minority community. Now, Dr. Shafi's case, well, okay, he can go to the Supreme Court. It's all about his individual rights. But then when it comes to the question, can that go to the line or level of ensured some sort of a regulating the in media that went against me? Let's not put a name, okay, me. Then there is a bit of a lacuna in our law, because the media does not feel that if I purposely give information continuously and repeatedly within a mala fide intention of achieving certain political objective or personal objective, maybe at worst the person who got victimized could go and get some relief of a long process. We have the fundamental right application, we have the civil courts, but then that does not necessarily mean that the mass media which was responsible, the culprit mass media, have some sort of accountability, that there will be some sort of penalty that might over the period of time, not immediately, might even have the effect of cancelling their license. So that may be the last resort. So I would say, yes, there is a lacuna, and that has to be addressed, especially not only in mass media, so is the social media. So while admitting that we need a regulation, how do we do is the question.
Now, for example, we had the president of our country a few days ago. He said that, he posed the question, actually, as to why the media should be troubled by these proposals. But he then went on to compare our proposals, or his proposals, his government's proposals, to how the regulatory mechanism works in Britain. Now, in Britain, we don't have the King of England or the Prime Minister, whoever that Prime Minister is, because we've had so many in the last few months. But nevertheless, they don't appoint the members of the Ofcom, for example, just on their whim and fancy. There are stringent rules in place, which is the sort of good governance on public appointments. So where you represent public, there is one standard for anybody and everybody who's going to be appointed. Isn't the problem in Sri Lanka that this public service appointments are usually on the basis of political patronage, friendships? Some people would say, they get their lackeys to come inside and purportedly represent the people, but actually they're representing their representation is very partisan.
Well, yeah, that's quite an interesting point that you made. But unfortunately, we do in Sri Lanka have two types of controlling when it comes to public officers and independent commissions. We do have a constitutional council which speaks about our Supreme Court judges, Chief Justice, and the other independent function. We also have, a committee in Parliament in respect to the appointments. And now, what's our experience? We have enough number of politicals appointed for the ambassadors post. And the parliament committee sitting on that has already given the green light for most of these appointments. We do have a constitutional council, but unfortunately, our experience with the election commission. So then there must be some mechanism. True, there are two test mechanisms. One is the constitutional council, other is a committee by the parliament. And interestingly, even the present Broadcasting Corporation Act do have provisions. The appointments to the commission is through the Constitutional Council. But what I would say is, whatever you say, the moment you speak about going to the contents and straight away giving the powers, that's a bit of a, it's like opening a Pandora's box as far as Sri Lanka is concerned, because how do you decide what is factually correct and what is truth? Because what is truth today may not be the truth tomorrow. What was factually correct may turn out to be wrong tomorrow. So the right to give the information on the information based on what the mass media receive from their whoever who give that information as facts, the mass media must have the right to put to the people and leave the balance for the people to decide. And then the truth of it, it is for the people to decide. That it may change time to time, culture to culture, religion to religion. I may be a Muslim, a believer of God, and I might believe in the existence of a God. But another friend of mine may not believe it. But that's it. So I can always, or media can always have certain preacher talking about the fact that there is a God exists the way the Muslim person, Islamic person believe. On the contrary, a person who does not believe in God can put forward a scientific argument, a logical argument against it. It's perfectly fine. That information must come in. It's open for the people who listen to take a decision. So this is a bit of a tricky area. With the political culture that we have, the Ofcon or the Ombudsman experience, how much it can be applied in Sri Lanka is a big question mark. So what I would coming back again to this main question, while admitting there must be some regulation, which can over the period of time even can cancel their license, which for which reason the institution has to be a bit cautious. Should not be, let's put it, such a commission, it should not be a sword of Damocles hanging over you. That's my point, The movement, the way drafted today, the content can go into big question, and then annually it has to be renewed. And as the act start, every institution must get their license for the first time. It looks little funny to me, and it looks as if giving the suspicion as if the government is creating this from their experience of Aragale, not from the experience of Digana. Just I'll make one more point.
Yes.
When the Digana issue went around.
We'll come back to that point. It's now time to go for a short break in which we take a look at this evening's headline news from that wonderful primetime news team led by our good friend, and everybody knows him, Niresh Elitambi. We'll rejoin you with Nizam Kariapper, who is on Newsline Zoom tonight. We'll see you on the other side of the break.
Sure.
News First, Newsline with Faraz Shaukat Ali on TV1.
Sri Lanka's debt restructuring plan to Cabinet on Wednesday and to Parliament during the weekend. Sri Lanka's Foreign Minister and 12 other MPs, including Namal Rajapaksa, in China for talks including debt. Opposition wants the President to reveal the debt program. CBSL Governor assures no impact in local deposits and interest revenue. Court of Appeal invalidates the Attorney General's request to name Deshabandhu Tennakoon as a suspect in cases on attacking Gota Gogama. Civil activist Piyatni Keshala arrested by the CID.
සංචාරක හා හෝටල් ක්ෂේත්‍රයේ දෙස් විදෙස් රැකියා අපේක්ෂාවෙන් සිටින ඔබ වෙනුවෙන් MIM වෙතින් නවතම පාඨමාලා දෙකක්.
Certificate course in food and beverage, certificate course in kitchen.
මෙරට ප්‍රමුඛ පෙළේ හෝටල් තුළ ප්‍රායෝගික පුහුණුව සමග සුපවේදය පිළිබඳ ඔබේ කුසලතා ඔප්නංවා ගැනීමට අවස්ථාව.
Call 076-8822-707 now. Register via www.mim.lk. MIM Fox Faculty.
When a heart attack strikes, every minute makes the difference between life and death. With the right care and treatment at the hand of the most skilled surgeons and medical professionals. With the perfect environment for recovery. Darden's Heart Centre, dedicated to you.
Newsfirst, Newsline with Faraz Shaukat Ali on TV1.
Welcome back to Newsline Zoom. My guest this evening is Mr. Nizam Kariapper, President's Council Secretary, Sri Lanka Muslim Congress, SLMC. And here we are. Mr. Kariapper, thank you. But, you said it seems tricky to you. I sort of minded to agree with you because when you have invested millions, hundreds of millions of rupees in a business, you don't want to keep going back and start getting a renewal every year. And that to me sounds very odd, without any expectation of a renewal. And I don't believe that that's good for investment. And in any case, the next point I want to make to you, Mr. Kariapper, is this, that, this media freedom and the so-called media freedom isn't responsible for the economic mess that we see ourselves in. There are children who can't have breakfast before they go to school. There are university students who can't afford anything other than a basic meal, one a day. They're fainting in the hallways. And surely these are the problems that any government should be looking at, rather than trying to do many things and not achieve anything. The media freedom surely isn't responsible for the economic mess that we find ourselves 75 years after independence.
Well, I tend to disagree. Media freedom may have contributed, but that cannot be the reason. At the end of the day, it's the political culture, the value system, and I would say the media freedom is abused, or misusing of media freedom is different from the media freedom free say. So where does this media freedom becomes an abused or misused? That's where we have to look at it. In fact, I must admit, being a president's counsel and a legal personality, I may not be an expert to draw the line where the media freedom ends and abuse of media freedom starts. That's going to be a problem. We had the press council controlling it. Then I was talking about the Digana, when the government realized the media was used to, mobilize people to go against one particular community under the national security concerns. They were able to block some of these things. And then let me tell you, during the elections time, the election commission do have the power to regulate the broad mass media. How many times we as a secretary went and pleaded with the election commission and the government to incorporate an absolute power for the election commission to regulate the media during the elections. They didn't do it. So when they are not willing to do at an appropriate stage. Now, media goes into the all area, politics, religion, personal freedom, and judiciary. If the media freedom is used against the judiciary, we had enough successfully, we have controlled it by using contempt. But when it comes to during the elections, during the when the political parties who had the money, who has the power, controlled the media, we were helpless. On the other hand, when minority religious group are attacked, it's helpless. So it's not necessarily the media. I wouldn't accept for us all due respect to you, but I feel there is no mechanism for an ordinary citizen to petition in such a way which will put that particular media on a flash searchlight. At the same time, you don't control it. You don't make it a threat. As I said, you don't make it a sword of Damocles hanging over you by doing that. So you have to balance between.
Yes,
so finally, I would say media freedom is not the cause for economic downfall.
I'm glad you said that, because I was about to come back and start firing a few questions at you. For example, when the media exposes corruption, when the media exposes departures from due process, when the media exposes anything that is not fit for purpose, including human beings, then I think that the media, and I've made my living out of that, and I believe that what we've done is very serious, very essential public service. When we are highlighting what's happening to the EPF funds that are being that have been in the past invested in shares that have had no relative value, and just on the basis of somebody's whim and fancy and to help out a friend, well, I think when it comes to the public money, the media has a dynamic role to play in sort of explaining all these things and bringing it to the notice of the public, so that we report, you can decide, and you decide. You can decide only every so often, when you hold elections. But this government, the previous government, where are the provincial council elections? Where are the local government elections? We have, in effect, a de facto temporary president who is looking after the interests of our country, of all of us, to serve the balance of Gotabaya Rajapaksa's term. So what on earth is happening? Instead of fixing the economy, we need to, is controlling the media the most important matter this morning, this evening, tomorrow afternoon? I beg to differ.
Exactly so. You said it well. I think I made this point. It's for you all to give the information. It's for the people to decide. And that's one of the slogans that you have. That should be the slogan for every media. But provide opportunities, give them opportunities. Also, consider some sort of a voluntary regulation, because the government who wanted to control the media is using some of those bad examples, bad instances, in order to justify what they wanted to achieve. Actually, now, the media was responsible. Al Jazeera giving information in Arabic language for the people in for the Arab Spring. And media was responsible for actually coordinating otherwise in a leadership Aragale. Maybe not only this government, any government is thinking there should not be another Aragale coming in this Sri Lanka when the economic suppression takes place. So maybe they wanted to have rules in advance, because some of the comments made by the president connecting burning of his house to the broadcasting regulation, it gives a bit of a suspicious. It may be not correct, but it definitely gives a suspicious. So once again, the best that the regulation commission on the contents could do it a process by which anybody can make a petition, then produce evidence, have a preliminary investigation, and go to the second level, and then have the judicial supervision, and then penalty. And if it is repeated, maybe to the point of suspending for a temporary, and if it is continued to be repeated, maybe to revoke. But to give an arbitrary right to any authority for that matter, because all the authorities are capable of being manipulated by the head of the states or the politicians. So any authority being given in this manner, as it's now drafted, is definitely going to be, and my final word is definitely going to be, a sword of Damocles hanging over you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Nizam Kariapper, for your comments there. President's Counsel, Nizam Kariapper, also Secretary of the SLMC. And before I say we sign off, let me say that last night, the media played a dynamic role in Britain at Glastonbury when we reported the last live UK performance of Sir Elton John.
Okay.
52 years of super entertainment, and Sir Elton John at Glastonbury played his last farewell and paid tribute and hailed the emotion of the whole ambience. Thank you very much.
Okay.
Personally, thank you, Sir Elton John. But thank you to Nizam Kariapper for being on Newsline Zoom. Take care. Have a great evening as much as you can. And God bless you all.